I'm Aaron Hall, an attorney in Minneapolis. Tom Sedlak is with us today. He's a rental property manager. And for landlords who buy investment properties to rent out, Tom is a lifesaver because he and his company come in and manage all the day-to-day issues for landlords. You know, Tom, one of the common frustrations I hear from landlords is they think they're going to make a lot of money, and instead they end up pouring a huge amount of time into managing the property, trying to figure out what works and getting good tenants. So let's start out. What are the reasons that people get into property rental as landlords in the first place?
Well, in the current market, obviously, with the huge debacle in the housing market, there's a lot of incentive now for people who are underwater or who have moved for various reasons, like a job relocation or something, and maybe just don't want to sell a home at a tremendous loss in the current market. And so they've elected to consider renting their home. Some get in with the very short-term focus of I just want the market to recover, and then I'll sell the home, and then I'll at least mitigate my damages. And some may have a longer-term perspective. So I think that's the first impetus, and really they're kind of called accidental landlords in many cases. But in a lot of times we find that those individuals, once they do rent their homes, find out they do get significant tax benefits, they get cash flow, they get long-term appreciation and equity buildup all along the while that they have a tenant in place. And all of those end up being a very compelling reason why you would want to keep a home as a rental, potentially for a long term.
So there are different types of rental homes. There are townhomes, condos, single-family homes,
Right.
apartments. What do you handle?
We actually focus on the single-family home market, and the reason we do is it's a very difficult market to manage. For independent landlords that are trying to manage a single-family home, you have a lot more complexities involved in managing. You have all different paints, all different carpets, different locations. There's no common area. There's no on-site manager as you would have in an apartment complex. You really are extending a significant amount of trust to the tenants when you have a single-family home situation. Notwithstanding the structure itself, you also have the residential setting that the structure is located in, and certainly placing bad tenants in the midst of a good residential neighborhood would be a huge mistake and can cause a lot of long-term problems.
What types of problems do landlords face that eventually cause them to say, I need somebody like Tom to manage my property, I'm done with this?
Absolutely. There are a lot of things that landlords don't even know themselves that they don't know. It's one of those things where they don't know what they don't know. Everything from city licensing laws, landlord-tenant laws. Minnesota, probably one of the most tenant-friendly states in the country. Lots of laws applicable to tenants, to privacy, quiet enjoyment, everything to dispositioning the security deposit within a certain amount of time and within certain parameters. So there are a lot of complexities involved. And then of course you've got maintenance. How many, or do you have appropriate contractors that can take care of things on a timely basis so you can avoid having court escrow actions for delayed maintenance. All those sorts of things just add a layer of complexity. When it comes to tenant screening, this is where a lot of independent landlords really get themselves into trouble. HUD has escalated, and in fact the number of HUD violations for discrimination have gone up almost exponentially in recent years. A lot of them against individual homeowners who don't know what the fair housing laws are, what discrimination really means, what parameters are involved in terms of treating people equitably and fairly between applicants. And all of that can very easily land an independent landlord in court for a HUD violation, and those fines start at $11,000. So it's an extremely important thing for landlords to recognize what they don't know and to, again, seek out the services from a professional management company that can help them avoid those risks.
In the early 2000s, when property values were continuing to rise, we were one of many people who decided, hey, let's buy an extra property, rent it out. The money from the rent you could use to apply towards a mortgage, and then the property value would increase, we'd sell it and make a lot of money.
Sure.
It didn't turn out that way. But I found I was greatly frustrated with trying to find good tenants. Many times months would go by while we're trying to get a new tenant in. And then we'd get a tenant in and they may not pay. Now we have that whole issue. And then there were problems and issues, repairs or tenants making too much noise and the homeowners association complaints. So it was all the time I was spending on this that caused me to get a property manager. What amazed me though was how much we actually made financially by getting a property manager. It didn't actually cost us. We made money because a property manager advertises it, so you're able to often charge more than a single landlord trying to do a little advertisement. And you get somebody in immediately because property managers are constantly advertising. You don't have to wait a few months and lose that rent.
Yeah.
And then just not having the hassle of tenants calling you and, hey, the toilet's clogged and we can't unplug it, things like that.
Absolutely. I think that really hits the nail on the head. Is a good property management company, even with the fees that they would charge, which by the way are tax deductible, you're going to make more money and do less work and have a greater probability of a much higher successful outcome with a management company than you would trying to do it yourselves. Everything from marketing, for instance, 33rd Company markets to over 200 websites. We embed Google Analytics, we track all the incoming impressions, clicks, click-throughs, page views, brochure openings. We've got some of the best rental marketing available in the country, and our vacancy rates show it. They're extremely short. Generally, we can rent homes in 30 days or less and find quality tenants while we're doing so. And then, of course, tenant screening is so critical. Setting good, experienced parameters on what to look for and how to screen and where to set the thresholds, very critical. For instance, our income standard is 3 times the rent. Each tenant, whether they're married or not, it doesn't matter. They each get screened. But when we screen for that income standard, we screen and the applicants are required to have 3 times the rent and income. So if we have unrelated people that are not married, they're each going to have to make 3 times the rent. If they're married or they commingle their finances, then we allow them to share their joint income. But again, that is a very high standard for screening that we use to make sure that we apply a consistent bar, find a consistently good tenant, and then move forward. And then of course the other benefit with a management company is maintenance. Our company manages several hundred homes, over $100 million worth of residential rental properties, and we get huge volume discounts on contracted maintenance services. So that could save the owner a lot of money as well.
Right.
So it's all those little hidden pockets of value that add up to a much greater return for the individual owner than they would get themselves.
A lot of landlords call me with legal questions because they're having problems. Tenant won't pay, they're trying to sue, they're doing an eviction action or an unlawful detainer. I've referred many people to Tom because I say, look, it doesn't make sense to spend all this money dealing with this stuff when you can have a property manager take care of it for you, you'll save money. But Tom, even though we recommend that, a lot of people will still want to be a landlord. So I have 2 questions for you. The first one is there anybody who should not use a property management company where they're actually going to be better off doing it on their own?
I would say there may be very well cases where that would be true. If someone, for instance, owns a duplex and they're living in one side and renting out the other, they're there. The 10 o'clock at night plug toilet call or maintenance issue generally isn't going to be as much of an inconvenience for someone that may not even be living in the same city. So that would be probably a case where it might make sense. Or if you're renting out a bedroom or basement or a room over a garage, something like that, absolutely those would be cases where an individual could do that. Also, if you're just managing one home, maybe 2, it's small enough where if you've got the time, if you're retired and you just don't mind spending a little extra time each week, being involved with some of the day-to-day day things that happen. That could be another scenario.
I suppose the challenge there, though, is they still have to find the tenant initially, which can take a while, even if they don't mind the maintenance and the other ongoing.
Yep, and that's true. And you still are faced with the tenant placement question.
Right.
Is how am I going to find that quality tenant, screen them, place them, and also have substantially good and effective documentation in the form of a lease and addendums that are going to preserve and protect that tenancy.
You know, that's a good point. As a landlord, you don't want to use just those standard leases you can get for free on the internet. Often people are hiring us to do it, but I'd rather see them benefit by using a property management company. You already have all those forms. It's all in place. It's ready to go.
Absolutely. In fact, some of the leases that you buy at OfficeMax per se, not even legal in the state. So a lot of times the landlords will get themselves into even further trouble by using a lease that isn't even appropriate for the setting. So.
Tom, one other tip that I picked up from you that I really liked was the fact that you do the automatic payment through the tenant's bank account. So you don't have to call them and mail them each month in order to make sure that rent comes in and make sure it comes in on time. That eliminates a lot of the time the property management company would spend chasing tenants. It also means you're much more likely to get paid, and property management fees can be lower as you have that efficiency in place.
Absolutely. By requiring automatic ACH direct debit right out of their checking or savings account, not only can we add a certain discipline to the rent collection process, we even do that with our co-signers. So if we have a parent or other responsible adult co-signing, they would also fill out an ACH direct debit form. And then if we ever can't get the money out of the tenant, we can direct debit the co-signer and get those funds same day with an ACH automatic transaction.
One other problem that landlords often encounter from a legal perspective is dealing with the security deposit. As you know, the state laws are very strict about what you can do with the security deposit, that you have to provide a notice within a certain amount of time or refund the money. And often people don't. And if they don't do that, the penalties are quite high. And there are nonprofit organizations that will help tenants pursue those penalties. So it's important for landlords to respect tenant rights, follow the law, and make sure that they deal properly with that security deposit. I imagine you have procedures in place for all of that.
Yeah, that's another good thing about a management company is we're very process-oriented. Checklists and workflow diagrams, all of that to keep us within the letter and the spirit of the law to make sure that we don't have an inadvertent violation of security deposit notice, for instance, or the detail behind a withhold, which is required as well by state statute. So.
How did you get involved in this business? I understand that you were a landlord yourself.
That's right. We actually kind of stumbled into it. We started buying our own rental properties in the 90s and really started working for ourselves, managing. And we got to a point where we had enough properties where we decided we're either going to have to hire a management company so we can continue to buy the properties, or we're going to have to spend some time and learn how to do this ourselves and create our own management company, because there really weren't any good management companies back then doing single-family homes, and in fact still today there are very, very few that can do it very well. So we ended up creating all of our processes, establishing our business model, and incorporating the company and creating the property management company. And then as of about 6 years ago, we were asked by friends and acquaintances, hey, can you manage my home while I'm overseas with my company? And we said no for quite a while, and then we finally decided, well, we've got a really good process and a really good company, let's give it a try. And it was just wildly successful. And we now have over $100 million worth of residential properties under management.
Wow.
Very successful in terms of just the day-to-day management and the good common sense management, from tenant screening to marketing to even helping owners sell their homes in the end. And sometimes we can even do a facilitation sale between owners and the tenants. Just to give you an example, with over 400 properties in 2011, we had a grand total of only 3 evictions on the entire 400 plus properties.
Wow.
And in 2010 we had 0 evictions. And you're just simply not going to get there without doing the day-to-day due diligence that's required to really make sure that everything is flowing correctly.
That's amazing. How should people contact you if they're interested in learning more about your company doing property management?
Yeah, we'd love to hear inquiries. Our website actually is full of information, even for those individuals that may wish to try and manage their own homes themselves initially. Lots of resources on our website, and that's at www.33rdcompany.com. They could also call us at 651-777-5500, and that's our main number for our Twin Cities office.
I have a number of clients who have used your company for years and have been very happy. So thanks for coming in
Yeah,
today.
thank you so much. Yep.